Right now on WUSA 9 News at 11, new reporting on tonight's big breaking news. Tonight, former President Donald Trump faces charges in the investigation into January 6th. His third indictment since leaving office. Good evening, I'm Leslie Foster. We were expecting this new federal indictment to drop any day now, and it did just that about 6 hours ago. And since then, we've learned a lot. Former President Trump is facing 4 federal charges. He's accused of 3 criminal schemes to overturn the 2020 election results. Now, we're going to put all of this into context for you. Casey Nolan is here in the studio. He's got some new reaction to the indictment. Jordan Fisher was in the courtroom earlier. He'll add some context to how these charges are similar to people charged in the Capitol riot. Katie Lusso is live at the D.C. jail with details on the punishments Trump could face. But first, I want to bring in our Adam Longo. He is live at the federal courthouse in downtown D.C. And adds, you spent the night reading through this 45-page indictment against the former president.
Yeah, Leslie, that's right. It's essentially a 45-page roadmap of all of the efforts that federal prosecutors say Donald Trump and his subordinates went through, all of the things that they did to try and reverse the results of the 2020 election. Details about what happened after the election in November and in the days leading up to January 6th. Department of Justice Special Counsel Jack Smith and his team convincing a second grand jury to indict former President Trump on felony charges.
Lies by the defendant targeted at obstructing a bedrock function of the U.S. government, the nation's process of collecting, counting, and certifying the results of the presidential election.
The new charges Trump faces include conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, obstruction of or attempt to obstruct an official proceeding, and conspiracy against rights.
My office will seek a speedy trial.
The indictment covers information brought to light by the House of Representatives January 6th committee, but also goes deeper, probing the proven lies from Trump that fueled the January 6th assault on the Capitol and the efforts by Trump and his inner circle to try and both delay the election certification and illegally replace legitimate slates of electors from key states won by President Biden. Prosecutors accuse Trump of spreading false claims he knew were false, in some cases within hours of those claims being debunked by members of his own team. The indictment alleging, quote, the defendant, Trump, made knowingly false statements integral to his criminal plans to defeat the federal government function, obstruct the certification, and interfere with others' right to vote and have their votes counted. The indictment also claims that on New Year's Day 2021, 5 days before January 6th, Trump allegedly berated VP Mike Pence over the phone about Pence's unwillingness to stop the certification of the election. When Pence told Trump it was improper and that he lacked the authority, Trump allegedly responded, "You're too honest." Now, this is the same courthouse where charges have been brought against more than 1,000 defendants in connection with the assault on the Capitol on January 6th. Many of those defendants making the claim here inside of this court that they wouldn't have been here had not Trump directed them to be here. We're live outside of Federal District Court in D.C. Adam Longo, WUSA 9.
A lot to go through in those 45 pages ads. Thanks for taking us through that roadmap there. Tonight, former President Trump posted on Truth Social calling the indictment fake. He also questioned the timing of these charges, saying they were handed up in the middle of his campaign. This indictment is related to our area in a pretty deep way. It is connected directly to January 6th. And Casey Nolan talked with some key people connected to that terrible day. What did they say to you today?
Well, Leslie, the people I spoke with both support these charges, but then they're also questioning why it took 2.5 years to get them. And they worry that the timing could have consequences for the case.
Maryland Democrat Congressman Jamie Raskin served on the House January 6th committee. He says Tuesday's indictment of former President Trump closely mirrors the case the committee tried to make.
I feel very pleased that this is such a vindication of the rule of law in America, and that this grand jury saw what the January 6th committee saw.
For some around D.C., these charges are personal, like Sandra Garza, the longtime partner of Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick, who was attacked on January 6th and died the next day.
It's definitely very personal. I was very, very happy when I saw that he was finally indicted for his role in January 6th. And actually I felt, it's about time.
Capitol Police Officer Harry Dunn said in a text message, all all I've wanted from day one is accountability and justice for me and the men and women who fought bravely on January 6th, adding that he's, quote, thankful, yet I'd be lying if I didn't acknowledge my numbness with the news of the indictment today, writing that he, too, could only reflect on how long this fight has been. More than 2.5 years since the attack on the Capitol, Garza worries the timing could be a factor in the election.
My biggest concern now is that he will sadly win the next election. I hope that doesn't happen, but he could resume control again of the Justice Department and throw all of this out.
And Sandra Garza told me for her, there will be no accountability for Officer Sicknick's death until the former president is in prison or faces some kind of what she called, Leslie, real consequences.
She reminds us that this wasn't just democracy. These were lives that were impacted, so many lives that have changed in ways that we won't truly ever be able to fully comprehend.
That's right.
All right, thanks, Case. Now let's take a look ahead to what comes next. Former President Donald Trump's arraignment is scheduled Thursday. That's set to happen at D.C.'s federal courthouse at 4 p.m. We don't have exact details, but it is safe to say you'll see an increased police presence that day. We're still asking for specifics like street closures and what this means if you've got business downtown on Thursday. We'll, of course, share those answers with you when we have them. If special counsel Jack Smith gets his way, Trump will end up at the D.C. jail. Katie Lusso is there with some context on the charges he's facing. Hi, Katie.
Hi there, Leslie. And if the special counsel gets their way, he will in fact be here with several January 6th defendants. Now, every night for the past year, there have been supporters out here protesting outside in support of the January 6th defenders. Well, tonight was no different. They were back out here, but this time they were joined by counter protests. Now, all of it cleared out in the last 90 minutes, but we want to show you some video from a little bit earlier where you can see those crowds gathered out here. Not a huge crowd, but they were very vocal. The back and forth blasting of music, chanting, and blaring sirens could be heard for blocks around the area, each side trying to overpower the other. On one side, you had the January 6th protesters. They've again been out here every night for the past year. And on the other side, you had the counter protesters, keeping them apart, the tape, and a large police presence. Now, if convicted, President Trump faces on the max penalties, on count 1, 5 years. On count 2, 20 years, count 3, 20 years as well, and count 4, 10 years. Of course, we will be staying on top of this, and more protests are expected out here in the coming days. We will, of course, be out here as well. Outside the D.C. Central Detention Facility, I'm Katie Lusso. Let's send it back to you.
All right. Thank you for that view there, Katie. Thank you. I want to bring in our digital investigative reporter, Jordan Fisher, into this conversation. Jordan, you were in the court when this indictment was handed up, and you have been in court for so long for all of these January 6 cases. What has stood out to you about today?
Well, one thing I noticed about the indictment is how narrowly structured it is. It focuses almost exclusively on the alleged conspiracy to build these fraudulent slates of electors and to pressure former President Mike Pence. It focuses very little on the actual riot itself. Prosecutors say that the former president exploited it, but they don't go so far as to say that he incited it. Now, a second thing I noticed is how they've structured it. It's in 3 alleged interlinking conspiracies. That's the same way we saw them prosecute both the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys conspiracy cases, and both of those, of course, resulted in successful convictions.
So this attack on the Capitol, of course, happened in our backyard. We're talking about our neighbors here. I'm wondering if there's any chance that you see the former president trying to get this case moved out of D.C.
I think his attorneys absolutely will file a change of venue motion. We've seen it in hundreds of Capitol riot cases before. What we haven't seen is any success in that. Not one in the more than 1,000 cases that have been charged so far has been moved out of the district. And part of that is because there's a clause in the Constitution in Article 3 that says cases have to be tried in the jurisdiction where the crime allegedly occurred unless there are special circumstances. And what the prosecution has said time and time again is even very high-profile cases like the Boston Marathon bombing have been able to be prosecuted in the jurisdiction where they occurred.
So it doesn't matter who you are. It's got to go according to that clause.
Right.
All right, Jordan Fisher, thank you so much. We know you're going to be following this closely.
Absolutely.
And as we learn more about Thursday or the charges against the former president, we will be sure to keep you updated. And you can follow this when you want, along with our free WUSA 9 app.